Okay, here's our uranium update. It is September 10th, so we have another full weekly candle. And we also have a nice, yeah, I mean, really, this definitely has the look of a, you could say a rising bearish wedge. But we'll talk about that. Let's start with the daily chart. And so we have our high on day 13. And this has been a really nice rally. So from the bottom, we've rallied 40 over 40%, about 41%. And even if you and this is important to think about again, like the idea of investing is to you want to try to mitigate risk. You want to you're not like gambling, right? So what if you waited, right? So you had this like green reversal candle, great. Okay, next day, excuse me. Okay, next day gapped up. That's great. So you're like, okay, well, we got follow through off this reversal candle. So we have our swing low. So if you got in even at the high of this candle, worst case scenario, you've had at least a sort of 32% move. Doesn't mean you sold at the top, obviously. Who knows where, right? Or even if you waited to, let's say the underside of this gap, right? So like you got in at some point within like this candle here, you could have seen you could be up sort of 2018. The point there is this has been a great run. That's awesome. Not surprising that we're getting this kind of consolidate. I mean, because right. So I guess this was your consolidation, but you did have this kind of like false breakout looking sort of thing, and then you had this move here. I mean, this is just a slight higher high. It looks like this is all consolidation to try to go and test this, obviously, right? So this is your 32.49. And you would think the way we're churning like this, that we're going to break through it in more powerful fashion. The only problem is that we're not late, we're not early in the weekly cycle. And again, it depends on, you can kind of quibble about where the weekly cycle kind of starts. But at the very least, you can see these three weekly candles do look a bit stretched. Either way, this is probably your horse you want to ride in terms of uranium. Nice to be back above $30. That's important. But on the downside, at some point we're going to get a weekly cycle pullback. You definitely do want to be watching this kind of area, this gap, between 24.70, 23.76. So almost about exactly $1. So might be, it might end up, this kind of area might end up being sort of a reaccumulation zone. Could be very interesting. You look at the monthly, just looks like kind of clear sailing, right? If you look at the monthly chart, this is important, right, to understand. This is almost reverse symmetry. You have these three red months down, and now these three green months up. And obviously this is still a really early candle, this September candle. But this is how you think about being long, and not in an emotional way, right? Like, look at the chart itself. Now, that 28 level that we talked about in multiple videos, that can be a very logical area that you want to consider potentially using as a stop, or at least, you want to observe, like, price needs to really react positively to that area, meaning if it gets there, bouncing off it for you to be comfortable just kind of remaining long. But ultimately, this thing, you would imagine, is going to retest that 60 area and probably go beyond. So at like, this really is all kind of consolidation for that kind of move ultimately. And so let's just look at sort of a basket of the others, right? So this is, just reload this here. There we go. So just a few, right? So this is CCJ, which we were just looking at. This is the actual ETF. I think this is URA. So these are monthly charts. They all have that same look, except notice for CCJ, we're making higher highs. This is still beneath swing highs, right? This is the ETF itself. There was a question in the comments previous video about whether I like ETFs versus individual stocks. It really depends on the sectors, and this is a perfect example where there's some choice individual names that are obviously going to give you some obvious outperformance, and so it makes sense to just follow those versus the ETF. Like in this case, for instance, if you look at some other names, so this is looking like if you look at something else that's more in the bullish camp, like more in the CCJ camp, Paladin Energy. Man, this is actually looking really nice. I mean, look at this structure. And these are monthly charts, excuse me. So this is your monthly chart. You have this move up, higher low, this move up, little consolidation, and then this you can see as really essentially a bull flag. And so this has been three, and again, this is a very early candle, this September candle, but you can see even after some consolidation, a little pullback on lower time frame, this could be ready for kind of an explosion. Like if you do just kind of really rudimentary, you know, what do you call it? Measured move. You could, you could get yourself to something like that, right? And that would be where. Okay, like that's okay. That's a nice move. So that would be like almost $7, and we're here around $1. So yeah, I mean, and that's illustrative purposes, obviously, and that stuff is definitely debatable how accurate that kind of projection is, and you'd have to watch it in real time. That's not going to happen in a straight line. There will be pullbacks along the way, and some of them will be very violent because this is a monthly chart, right? But this is definitely looking like one of the more bullish ones alongside CCJ. Next gen, okay. Like, and when I say that, I mean, notice it's above swing highs. This is still below swing highs. This is way below swing highs. This is below swing highs. That's Fission Uranium. This is GoviX. UEC is actually still below swing highs. So Paladin is definitely the most. Denison is starting to wake up a little bit, but still below swing highs. And so doesn't mean these things can't do well, but if you're looking for sort of outperformance, if you're trying to evaluate things against one another, that's a good way to look at that, right? To kind of understand what is making higher highs already. It's already broken through resistance. We know the buyers are there. That's the way to kind of think about it. So that's the way the table is set for uranium. There is going to be a weekly cycle pullback at some point. That the bears are going to come out and say it's over. Like it's going to be fine. Things move in this ebb and flow. Nothing moves in a straight line.